Okay, I'm going to show you, well, let's see. Well, before I show you how to make distilled water, let's figure out what was in B. So this was distilled water, absolutely pure water. Some people have to drink distilled water because they have some kind of disease that requires them to drink distilled water rather than tap water. Okay, now, so B had water that had fewer salts than seawater, but more salts than distilled water. Who thinks they know what kind of water this might have been? Tanner? No?
Oh,
Tap water. There were that many salts in my Graham tap water where I live. All tap water has salts in it, but in small quantities they're called minerals. Most of you probably knew that there were minerals in your tap water.
there
Okay,
is.
well, different sources have different amount of minerals. How many of you live in the city of Eatonville? Okay, well, you all have the same kind of tap water. How many of you are on your own well? Anybody? Well, then, if each of you has a different well, you may have a slightly different amount of minerals or salts in your water. Okay, so that was tap water. Is that surprising that there's that many salts in tap water?
Yes.
Okay. Well, they call them minerals when they're in small quantities, and minerals are good for you in small quantities. You have to have minerals in your diet to grow, but you can also get too many minerals, which I'll tell you about later. Okay, so here's what we're going to write for our conclusion. Because, all right, I'm writing because and then a colon to indicate that I'm going to write 3 equivalent phrases after that. A contained seawater. Oh, A didn't contain seawater.
No.
Why didn't anybody correct me?
I did. I just didn't say
A
it out loud.
contained distilled water. Period. B contained tap water. C contained seawater. And then I'm going to put in parentheses a principle that's related to this. It's not revealed directly by the data. I guess maybe it is by number 12. When water evaporates, it leaves behind anything that was dissolved in it. Okay. Now here's the good news. That's all you have to write on your record sheet today. Fairly short record sheet today. You don't have to write anything else after that. But we're not finished because there are a lot of more things I want to tell you. What, Tanner? Can you not read something? All right. Now, I'm going to show you how to make distilled water, and I want to see if anybody does it before I come back next week. It's pretty easy to make distilled water. Here's what you do. You take a cooking pan with a handle on it like that. Fill it about half full of water. And that can be any kind of water, because you're gonna distill it, make it pure, which means everything that's in the water is left behind. So it doesn't matter what kind of water you use. You could use seawater, you could use sewer water, you could use swamp water, you could use mud puddle water. You can use tap water. It doesn't matter what kind of water you use. And that's very surprising to some people. Okay? You heat it, put on the stove and heat it to boiling. And it forms steam, which is the gaseous form of water. Then you take a glass baking dish filled with ice cubes. I'm going to make ice spheres because they're easier to make. Okay? Now that's to cool the surface. Who knows what happens to steam when you cool it? What happens to steam when you cool it, Wyatt? It turns back into a liquid. Steam is water too, but it turns back into a liquid. When it hits it, and these droplets run down the bottom of the dish and drip off the corner here. And if you collect it in a glass, you have distilled water. The term distill is a verb. You can distill any liquid. It's most commonly applied to distilling water. But you can purify any liquid by distilling it. If you boil the liquid, form a vapor, and then cool the vapor back into a liquid, that liquid is a pure liquid. And that's how they purify almost all of the liquids you can buy. Gasoline, diesel, kerosene, alcohol, all those pure liquids that you buy are purified by the distilling process. Distilling means you heat it to boiling to form a vapor, then you cool the vapor, and you collect the liquid that forms. And that's a way of purifying. It's the best way there is of purifying a liquid. You want to make sure you use a glass baking dish like this. Hold it over the steam. Don't use a metal pan because the water you collect will taste like the metal in the pan. So use a glass dish. Also, if you drink this water, it may not taste good to you because you're used to drinking water with minerals in it. And this won't have any minerals. Now, is anybody going to try this before I come back next week? Okay, if you do, let me know. If you do, let me know. But that, I wouldn't suggest you start with sewer water if you're going to do this, okay? Start with something, the best thing to start with would be tap water because it's the most easily available. Okay, so that's how you make distilled water. Okay? So here's all you have to have on your record sheet today. There's something else I need to tell you though. Oh, that isn't all you're going to put in your record sheet. That goes on the top. I'm sorry. That goes on the top. I'm going to give you a list of some of the salts in seawater. Now, if you already filled up your whole front of your sheet, you can write on the back. Here's what you're going to write. Some salts in seawater. There are at least a couple of dozen different salts in seawater. I'm only going to give you 5. Okay. The most abundant one is sodium chloride, which is table salt. You probably all knew there was table salt in seawater, but a lot of people think that there's only table salt. That's not true. I'm going to give you the chemical names of 5 salts. You don't have to remember them, but I want you to write them down. When you take chemistry, you'll study these salts. Okay, there's potassium, sulfate, calcium, phosphate, magnesium, nitrate, that's Ni there, and iron sulfide. Iron sulfide. Those are just 5 of the many salts that are in seawater. And like I say, when you take chemistry, you'll study those different kinds of salts. So get that copy down, but there's something to put under the list once you get the list copy. Here's what you're going to say. Iron salts
Yeah. You.
Iron oxide is called rust. Iron oxide is called rust, and you should all know that rust is brown. Get that copy down and then we'll do something else. No, I don't think you're gonna have to write any more after that.
Do you have to draw anything?
No, I'm gonna make a copy and you can have a copy of it. Raise your hand if you've never seen rust. If you've never seen rust, you must have lived a very sheltered life, because anything iron that's left out in the weather forms rust, because the iron combines with the oxygen in the air to form iron oxide. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you bold D. But you don't have to write anything about bold D. Look at the crystals in bold D. By looking at those crystals, somebody ought to be able to tell me something about the water that these were in. What was in this water, Kia? Oh, pardon me, Jackie. No, what was in this water? Emily?
Iron.
There were iron salts dissolved in this water. How can you tell, Emily? How did you know that?
Because it's like a light brown.
It's a light brown. It's not a dark brown because it's mixed in with a lot of white salts. Most salts are white, but iron salts are brown. And so if you get a few iron salts mixed in with a lot of white salts, they're just a light brown. All right, so this water had a lot of iron in it. Who knows where you can go to get water with a lot of iron in it? There's a place no farther than 25 miles from here where you can get water with a lot of iron in it. Who knows? Jeremy?
I can't remember I don't know what you're talking about, but there's this one river I saw before, and it's all yellow and orange, and they said it's because it has a ton of iron in it.
That was a
Well, I'm
field
talking
trip.
about a place within 25 miles of here. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Where can you go within 25 miles of here and find water that has a lot of iron in it? Stevie? Huh? No? Jackie? Up in the Mount Rainier National Park. Raise your hand if you've ever been to Longmire. Well, raise your hand if you've ever been to Paradise. Paradise is a great place to go snow sliding in the winter. And I take my family up there the last week of July every year because that's when the mountain flowers are at their peak. Okay, now, I'm going to draw something and I want you to tell me what I'm drawing. Mount Rainier. There's Liberty Cap, Columbia Crest, and Point Success. I've got a son-in-law that climbs mountains and he's been on top of all those. Okay, down here at the 5,000 foot level, there's this resort area called Paradise. Raise your hand again if you've been to Paradise. Okay. To get to Paradise, though, you have to go through the little resort area called Longmire. Longmire. Okay. The Longmire family discovered the hot springs there in the late 1800s. And they knew they had a good thing because in the late 1800s it was hard to get enough bath water, enough hot water for a bath. But they had these hot springs with an unlimited supply of hot water coming out. So they built cabins there. And they advertised all over the world for people to come and rent the cabins. And if they rented the cabins, they could get all the hot water they wanted free. Okay? Now, most of you know that it snows on Mount Rainier. Okay. Some of that snow melts and comes down in this side and forms the Carbon River. Some of it melts and comes down this side and forms the Puyallup River. And some of it melts and comes down this side and forms the Nisqually River. which is the one you pass by when you're going up to Paradise. But some of it doesn't flow down the outside of the mountain. Some of it flows through cracks in the mountain, and there's some big cracks that start at the top of the mountain, and they end up down here at Longmire. Well, some of the melting snow up here flows down along those cracks, and as they flow through the cracks, they pick up minerals from the rocks and heat from the rock, because the mountain is an old volcano. It's still hot inside. So this water that comes out here has a lot of minerals in it, and it's hot. It's just a nice temperature. It's about 100 degrees or so. Real nice temperature for that. Okay. Now, if you go to Paradise, next time you go to Paradise, stop at Longmire, because it's interesting there. You park in the parking lot, and there's a meadow at Longmire where all these hot springs come out of the ground. And there's a trail around the meadow. It's a very scenic trail through the old growth forest. And if you walk around the trail, you come to a place where there's a wood platform where you can walk out and look down into this clear, bubbly spring. And I got a quart of water from that spring and put 2 cups of it in here and evaporated it. And that's how much material was left behind. Raise your hand if you've ever been out on that platform. Has anybody been around the trail and been on that platform? Okay. Now, if you continue around the platform, you'll see some of the stone tubs they built, where the water could run in one end and out the other end, so people could sit and soak in hot water all day if they wanted to. That's how a hot spring is formed. Usually, if you see a hot spring, there's almost always a mountain or some mountains nearby. Okay, now, the Longmires also advertise for people to come and drink their healthful mineral water, because people knew that you needed minerals to grow. But what they didn't know was you can get too many minerals. If you drank nothing but this water, no other kind of water, if you drank no other liquid besides this kind of water, you'd die after about 6 or 7 days. Did we have the potato focus?
Yeah.
The big and little potato?
No.
We haven't had the big and little potato in here yet? Yeah, we must
We
have.
have it.
Big and little potato, the potato shrank
Yeah.
when it was in salt water. Who remembers the process?
No.
Who remembers the process that caused it to shrink?
What's the God?
Begins with an O. What's the process that caused the potato to shrink, Tanner? Doesn't anybody remember osmosis?
Yeah. Oh, we never did.
Okay, well, you remember the potato shrank in salt water. How many remember that? Okay, well, salt water draws the cell juice out of cells. So if you drink nothing but salt water, yeah, Kendall's got the record sheet right there.
So does Jessica.
If you drink nothing but this, the salt builds up in your intestine,